Hey everybody, welcome to Get Busy Watching! I'm your host, Honest Dan. Let's talk movies. Welcome to my rapid fire drama and dramedy edition. Let's get started. This young man is hired to tutor the son of famous author Richard E. Grant. What starts off as a simple business arrangement turns into a plot to tear him down with the help of his own wife. I had no idea what this movie was before seeing it, but boy howdy am I glad I did. It's not the most twisted tale on the market, and certainly the ending leaves something to be desired, but what a ride! It can't be denied how British this is. It's a slow, methodical burn, so I can easily see some viewers thinking this is boring, and honestly, I wouldn't be able to blame them. This well-meaning dude is trying to help this snooty kid get into a prestigious college, but is a constant pain in the butt. Grant is a self-righteous, pompous jerk, so it's not the most riveting of stories at first. But I think if you allow yourself to get sucked into the developing plot, it gets pretty rewarding, mostly for how messed up things get later on. Affairs, stolen manuscripts, broken egos. It's a fun little story that sees this uppity famous writer lose his mind as his whole world crumbles around him, and is completely unaware as to how or why it's happening. What gets me is how in control he later thinks he is, but the audience knows better, and how this all gets resolved is, well, actually, not gonna lie, a bit rushed. No, I'm not giving it away, but I think that's the point, as Grant's in-story manuscript ends like it's part of a different movie, so I think the actual movie's ending is the way it is for a reason. I'm so happy I made the time to see this. The acting is superb. The writing is a whole hell of a lot of fun, and more than anything, it's just a good story, provided that you can tolerate the slow pacing. If you're in the market for something with a bit of a smaller budget, I can't recommend this enough. My honest rating for The Lesson, a 4 out of 5.
The greats, great writers, steal.
Set in 1926 to 1954, retelling J. Robert Oppenheimer's life studying at university, his time during the Manhattan Project, and subsequent political ramifications after. It's very good. A very Christopher Nolan film. By no means perfect, it has its mess, but for the subject matter, in anyone else's hands, it could have been way worse than very good. What holds this up is the perfect combination of writing and acting. For the first 2 hours of this, it's all about setting up how smart Oppenheimer is, how he got involved in the Manhattan Project, and the creation of the atom bomb. There is such a wonderful tension, the way the story hooks you in, letting you know the importance of America being the first to build the bomb before the Nazis do. My favorite line goes something like, "I don't know if we can be trusted with a weapon like this, but I know the Nazis can't." The performances from Emily Blunt, a near unrecognizable Robert Downey Jr. is sure to get a Best Supporting nom, and so much more. There are 2 points that I have a problem with. One, Florence Pugh is not my favorite in this, which is weird because I love her. But she spends most of her runtime being naked, and the writing for her just feels like Nolan flexing his dialogue capabilities rather than crafting a pair of believable characters. And I feel like the last hour of the flick was far less interesting than the first 2. It's so much talking about Oppenheimer's loose ties with the Communist Party, the revoking of his political clearance. It wasn't nearly as compelling. Thank God for Downey Jr. and Blunt for their standout scenes, or else this would have been downright unwatchable. I'm not saying it's going to be for everybody, but it is much easier to follow and a lot more coherent than something like Tenet, for example. But the runtime is long. I do highly recommend it. Its qualities do outweigh the negative, but man, get ready for a sit. My honest rating for Oppenheimer, a strong 4 out of 5.
There's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world. Chances are near zero.
Dame Helen Mirren is Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, and her influence during the conflict, as well as the ramifications of her decisions. It's basically a diet Oppenheimer. It's not as well written, but 2/3 of the runtime is shaved off, so it's a much easier sit, but not exactly as rewarding. Of course, the best part of the movie is Mirren. She commits to her role as Golda and makes you feel like the woman could really walk into a command center during wartime and every single 5-star general is gonna shut up and listen to her, and let her step on them and beg mommy for more. But for real, she's the sole reason this works half as well as it does. Make no mistake, this is a political thriller during wartime, so don't go into this thinking you're gonna see action scenes with tanks and gunplay. The action is heard through speakers and radio chatter. Some of them are effective, and how forgiving you are of that will determine your engagement. One of my favorite scenes is when Golda's assistant learns that her son has been sent to the front lines, but then later we learn of a devastating loss and her son was one of the casualties. Golda simply looks at this woman who breaks down and she tries to carry on her job. I wish I knew who the actress was, but she has the perfect expressions of hatred, sorrow, and wanting to say as much to Golda, but never does. Perfect acting, perfect directing by Guy Nativ. It's just too bad the rest of the movie doesn't seem to maintain that momentum. If you're a Helen Mirren fan, then I might recommend this because she's basically the only reason it's held together half as well as it is. If you're indifferent, then I don't know if I can recommend this. But if you're still curious, just wait for it on a streaming platform. My honest rating for Golda, a 3 out of 5.
It's that simple, and then the Arabs will most certainly attack.
What does your gut tell you?
My gut is none of your business.
This Turkish story follows this middle-aged man who gets a new job as the night manager at a hotel. However, his first night is a doozy as he deals with other troubles. I'm not entirely sure what I just watched. It feels like two halves of different movies just somehow collided, and I don't know how to feel about it. I'm with it for the first half. Main character Isaac is a lovable, if not a socially awkward older man who's just trying to be friendly and helpful to those around him. He sticks his nose where he shouldn't and it gets him hurt, and in his private moments he's trying to find self-worth by watching his favorite Instagram personality, giving motivational speeches, so there's a lot going on with him that makes him feel fleshed out and real. To say nothing of star and writer-director Kem Ilsman would be an injustice as he carries the film spectacularly. Where the movie takes some hard turns is around the second half of the story. Clearly Isaac takes meds. Unless I missed something, he forgets to take it and he starts spiraling. He becomes a jerk to those around him, he starts acting crazy, and even goes so far as to hallucinate his Instagram girl. The movie essentially turns into a psychological trip, and it was incredibly difficult to figure out what was real and what was in his head. I have to believe it was all symbolic of something. Commentaries about the COVID pandemic, relying on social media for mental health issues, the dangers of being irresponsible for your physical health. It feels like it goes in random directions and it doesn't feel coherent. Still, even take the second half away from the first, Isaac's breakdown is a trip and feels like this is what happens when someone gets careless with their personal needs. I don't hate it, but it does feel disjointed. Maybe something got lost in translation, I don't know. As a showcase for talent and good directing, it's actually pretty good in that regard. But I just don't click with the writing as much. Now, I'm still gonna recommend it, weirdly, because I just want other people to watch it and I want to know what other people think about it. My honest rating for Do Not Disturb, a strong 3 out of 5.
Yani ne olur? Yani darılmayın ama içime atsam da bu sefer bana kötü enerji olarak geri dönecek.
Based on true events, a dying Polish priest starts up a hospice and helps change the life of a troubled young man who is helping out at the hospice by court order. This was fantastic, and from what little I was able to research, it is faithful to the real events. And far and away, it's the best faith-based film that I have ever seen. And that's probably because it's not really about religion. The story is, for all intents and purposes, predictable. If you've seen a fictional story about a druggie who kicked the habit thanks to divine intervention, then you've seen this one. But what separates it from something made in America is that the religious aspect is nothing more than a detail. Father Jan doesn't preach about God. He appeals to humanity and has a grounded sense of right and wrong, tackling the nuances of hard truths that main character Patrick has to learn and understand in order to thrive in this environment. Patrick's arc isn't anything new, but actor Peter Trojan has such convincing physicality and mannerisms that I wasn't thinking about where this was going. But of course, David Ogrognik, sorry if I butchered that pronunciation, as Jan is utterly fantastic. The chemistry he shares with Trojan leaps off the screen and keeps you invested every step of the way. It's perfectly funny, but grounded. Perfectly dramatic, though not quite the tearjerker I was expecting in hindsight. But it's memorable and heartfelt. If you're anything like me and the concept of God just drives you insane, as well as the crap that PureFlix vomits out, then I can understand if you've otherwise tried to avoid this. But religion barely plays a factor in this. It wasn't God that saved Patrick. It was the compassion and kindness of a good man. And if you were to ask me, ain't nothing more warming to the soul than that. My honest rating for Johnny, a 5 out of 5.
To i tak niektórzy myślą, że ja...
A ja ksiądz?
Nie, pierwszy raz, poważnie mówię.
Based on true events, Jan Mardenborough's journey from being a hardcore Gran Turismo gamer to becoming a famous professional and accomplished race car driver. I went in thinking that this would be pretty good. I left the theater thinking that this was basically this year's Rocky. Yeah, I thought it was that good, that enjoyable. At least I did. Up until I learned something that kinda sours the experience. The story itself is as old as time. Plucky youngin' thinks there's more than this provincial life, is told that his dreams are dreams alone, but works his way up to making his dreams a reality. In that way, the script is pretty cliched, as it hammers that in a few times. That would hamper the movie some if the performances were weak, but that's not at all the case. Never mind that video games have always faced the tired, you can't do anything to make a career out of it argument. Streaming sites like Twitch and YouTube exist, but Jan Mardenborough is the heart and soul of the story with how much he wants to prove his father wrong. You see the weight he puts on his own shoulders, the weight of his father's expectations. There's never a moment you don't root for him, even when he accomplishes what he wants and has to contend with veteran drivers. It's not an easy road for him, and the pivotal moment when he crashes his car and accidentally kills a spectator is nothing short of one of the most emotionally powerful moments of the year. To say nothing of David Harbour's contribution to the story would be an injustice all its own, who probably delivers one of the best performances of his career. It has to be stated, the crash in the movie happens before the climax, but in reality happens after. 2 years if I'm not mistaken, and as a result has garnered some serious controversy online due to the timeline shift. I get it, and I don't agree that the movie never names or gives a face to the victim of the crash. Honestly, I can't even go online and find out who the victim was. Was the name not released or something, or was I just not looking hard enough? I have no idea, honestly. This information does bother me, despite the real Jan's justifications for the change. No hate, but not buying. It's a good movie, but that's how it needs to be taken. A movie, not an accurate representation of the real events. My honest rating for Gran Turismo, a 4 out of 5.
I am doing it. Whether you believe in me or not.
This couple is having relationship problems. She goes off to be an intern while he stays behind to work, and potentially bumps some uglies with other women. This was deeply unpleasant, and it boils down to just one reason: the main character. I understand it's in the title. It's about human flaws, and main character Ben's is that he's overly confrontational. The problem is that it goes too far with it, resulting in a character that I did not like and did not want to have a happy ending. He is never supportive of his girlfriend or treats any of his wannabe infidelities with any level of respect, especially when things don't go his way. Makes so many excuses for his piss-poor behavior and is toxic as hell as he eventually stalks his girlfriend at her job. Throughout the viewing, I kept asking why I was supposed to care about this guy or relate to him. The movie gave me zero answers and only seemed to reinforce my disdain for him. But somehow, by the end, he has this magical realization that he's been a jerk, but the writing doesn't support his arc. When all was said and done, I didn't think this character deserved any type of relationship, platonic or romantic. Well, frankly, I didn't think any of the characters were likable. Co-workers who lust after the pretty new girl, the new girl who takes artistic photos of her urine, a girlfriend who lied about her own activities, and a gay best friend who enables and even encourages his questionable actions. It's such a shame that I don't like this because the acting is impassioned. The actors are clearly talented. But that's what makes it an even more gargantuan shame, because the writing makes them insufferable characters. Look, I have nothing but the highest of hopes for the talent, but I do not recommend this movie in any way, shape, or form. My honest rating for Shortcomings, a 1 out of 5.
But it's an amazing opportunity, Ben. I'm really excited about it.
It only seems like an amazing opportunity because it's in New York.
Based on true events, Emily Blunt is a former stripper who gets hired into a failing pharmaceutical company that needs their new drug to be prescribed by a doctor. When she makes it successful and accumulates wealth, eventually the success becomes their downfall. It's a rags to riches story. They're all the same and this one's no different. Even the alleged true events that this is supposed to be based on are way too fictionalized for me, personally, to consider it based. Still, the acting's good. It's a tale as old as time. Down-and-out protagonist is given an opportunity to get successful. They get that success, but then something bad happens to ruin the fun, and one of two endings happens. Either they lose everything and are worse than when they started, or triumphantly live with a little less and learned a lesson. This is the latter. Sorry for the potential spoilers, but that's this movie. It hits every single one of those beats, right down to Blunt's narrations that prepare us for the next act. It's kind of annoying. Not much to say about it, and that's what makes the overall package unremarkable. The only thing that keeps it elevated is the remarkable talent of Emily Blunt and Chris Evans. They are kerosene ignited, whose performances wouldn't be out of place in something like Wolf of Wall Street. Both are conniving, charismatic, engaging, and command the screen. Were it not for their chemistry and veteran Harry Potter director David Yates bringing out the best in them, this would have easily fallen to the wayside. It's not poorly written by any means, but no amount of good writing can work past this type of story's natural predictability and cliches. White Tiger, this ain't. If you're a fan of the core cast, then sure, I can recommend it for them. They are very good. If not, then yeah, you're not really missing out on anything. My honest rating for Pain Hustlers, a strong 3 out of 5.
Asshole to get up there and speed read a slide deck so everyone can get back to hitting on drug reps and getting drunk in the sun. And then they fly home and they write you drugs.
Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy out there. Hope to see you soon.